Are you wondering what you need to know in order to run a successful business? Well, in today's video, I'm going to give you the top 5 books that every entrepreneur must read in order to be successful. So what's going on, guys? It's Josiah, your success consultant, and in today's video, I'm giving you the top 5 books that every entrepreneur needs to know in order to run a successful business. So I want to let you guys know this right off the rip. And if you haven't done so already, please subscribe to this channel. All successful business owners are learning machines. I cannot say this enough. All successful business owners are learning machines. Typically, the people that think that they know enough about their industry, their trade, their skill, where they don't have to read any books, they don't have to do any learning, they don't have to take any courses, they just feel like they know enough and they're hardworking enough. Those are the people that typically miss out on being successful in business, right? When you think about the reason why 80% of all small businesses fail within 5 years' time, one of the primary reasons is because of the fact that 80% of those business owners did not know what they needed to know in order to take their gift and monetize it into a successful business, okay? This is going to separate the men from the boys. So with no further ado, we're going to hop into the top 5 books. These are the foundational books, but I want to encourage you, after you read these 5 books, to continue reading more and more and more, because we're going to just be touching the tip of the iceberg. In fact, all CEOs, the average CEO reads a book a week. So that should let you know how important that reading is to you growing a successful company. The number one most important book that I've ever read on the subject of business is the Bible. Now, that might sound like a very surprising statement to make, very alarming, very bizarre. Oh, Uzziah, well, why would you say that the Holy Bible is the number one book that's ever been written about business? Well, there's a ton of different reasons why, but I'll just start rattling off, I think, some of the top reasons why the Bible is my number one choice for business books, okay? So one primary reason why the Bible is so important is because it's filled with a set of principles to follow, okay? It gives a ton of different laws and instructions on proper principle for the management of your life. Okay, so a lot of us have heard things about the 10 Commandments in the Bible: thou shalt not steal, thou shalt not kill, right? Thou shalt not covet. But there's so many additional laws and principles that are written in the Bible that really gives us solid instructions on how to be able to order our business, right? If you were to read the book of Proverbs, for example, you're going to read about a lot of solid business principles that Solomon spoke about during his time. Now, if you don't know anything about Solomon, King Solomon was the wisest man to walk the earth, only second to Jesus the Christ. And so in Solomon's time, he had acquired massive wealth. In fact, many researchers have said that if you were to actually attempt to convert the wealth that Solomon had to today's dollar amount based upon inflation, Solomon would have easily been a trillionaire. Okay, and so in this book of Proverbs that Solomon has written about in great detail, he's outlining a series of principles on how one should live. That's where the saying comes from: if you see a man that's diligent in his business, he's going to walk amongst kings. He's not going to be amongst mean men. So Solomon is actually telling you, just in that one verse, that you are the average of the top 5 people that you spend most of your time with. If you want to allow your life to get to a place where you have achieved certain levels of accomplishments, you have to be skilled enough at your craft in order for you to have the right influence with the right people. Again, that's just one of the many verses out of the multiple chapters in the book of Proverbs. And again, the book of Proverbs is just one book out of the many books in the Bible. There are tons of great antidotes. There are tons of great do's and don'ts that the Bible talks about. I'm going to be quite honest with you. Most of the guys that you see in society today that talk about things like wealth accumulation, personal development, business, just growing your life in general, a lot of the lessons and the principles that they talk about and leverage to grow their business comes from the Bible. Like if you were to look at Dave Ramsey's channel, right? The guy that tells people all over the world about how to get out of debt. He's constantly referencing scriptures out of the Bible where it shows the importance of getting out of debt. If you were to watch any of Jim Rohn's previous videos, or you listen to really one of the best audio programs that I've ever listened to of all time, which was The Challenge to Succeed, he's constantly making different references from the Bible. So what is it about the Bible that very successful people know that most people don't? That the Bible actually has the answers for every walk of life, every facet of life. If you got a question about it, the Bible talks about it. There's an answer. But a lot of people, the average person, will look at the Bible and say, oh, well, you know, that's an outdated book. Oh, well, you know, we're in modern times. And without them even taking the time to read the book or extract the wisdom that comes from the book, they don't realize that many of the things that are written about in the Bible is actually timeless. That's the reason why Solomon said in the Bible in Ecclesiastes that there's no new thing under the sun. See, whether we're talking about the days of old or we're talking about life today, the principles remain the same. Now, the technology that we may use may be different, right? But the premise of how to be successful still stands. And so if you haven't done so, make sure you get this book, okay? This is by far the #1 book that I would recommend, not just obviously for your professional development, but most importantly, your spiritual development. Because as the scripture says, seek ye first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and everything else will be added unto you. One of the things that are added unto you in just gaining the wisdom that comes from the Bible is understanding how to order your life when it comes to your health, your finances, your relationships, etc. Okay? So, I'm going to add a couple bullet points here. Principles. Okay? If you're going to be successful in business, you have to understand principles. It's not just about knowing the technical aspect of things. You have to have a certain mindset that will position you for success. And that's the reason why the Bible says, as a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. You have to have the right thought principles already wired in your brain to help position you to be successful. If you don't have the right mindset for success, then success is going to avoid you, no matter how talented you are. I know plenty of people, extremely talented, very gifted, but because of the fact that their mindset is not based around sound principles, all the talent in the world doesn't help them run a successful business, okay? And again, one of the things that I feel is important here are laws, right? Why would laws be important in your business? Well, the reason why this is so important is because every successful business has a culture that's based upon a set of laws. Now, maybe they may not come out and tell you, yeah, we're calling it laws. They may call it procedures. They may call it policies, right? They may call it a code of conduct, whatever you want to say. They have a set of fixed rules that they are going off of to dictate how they interact in their day-to-day operations, right? McDonald's has a set of rules that keeps McDonald's running day in and day out. That's the reason why whether you are in Europe, whether you are in Africa, whether you are in the United States, The McDonald's looks the same wherever you go. And that's the reason why they operate off of a series of rules. It doesn't just happen by magic. Okay? And the next thing that I would tell you is one of the good things is the anecdotes that comes from the Bible. I'm going to give you a prime example of this. You know, when you're reading right at the beginning of the Bible, during the time of Moses, when you read about the history and the story of Moses being set as a leader over the children of Israel, one of the things that he had to learn very quickly was how to manage people, right? And as he was going on this conquest of managing people, he started to feel very overwhelmed because all of the children of Israel were coming directly to Moses for every matter that needed to be established. Anytime that there was an issue, anytime that there was a question, anytime that something was going on, they came to Moses for help on how to solve that. And it wasn't until his father-in-law, Jethro, explained to him that, you know, the approach that he was using to manage all of, you know, these different brothers and sisters out of the children of Israel to deal with particular issues, it wasn't actually effective in terms of being as productive as possible. His father-in-law, Jethro, told Moses, he said, you know, if you want to be more effective at managing this people, what you've got to be able to do is you have to appoint judges, leaders, and officers over the people at different ranks to handle different areas. How does this make sense, and what's the application in a business? Well, when you first start a business, you're wearing every hat. You take on every role. But all great businesses are going to grow. You are eventually going to fire yourself out of certain roles within your company. So maybe you're doing the marketing right now, but in time, you may have a marketing manager. Right now, you may be managing all of the finances, but in time, you may hire a CFO, a chief financial officer. Right now, you could be managing all of the operations, but you may look into getting an operations manager. So the whole point is you have to be able to understand how great leaders in time were able to effectively manage and train others to get to a great destination. And there's no greater book on the face of the earth that shows countless stories of how that happened than the Holy Bible. Like I said, you got stories about Moses and Aaron. You got story about King David and his mighty men. You got stories about Jesus Christ and the 12 disciples. All of these stories have different little anecdotes and nuggets of wisdom about how teams were developed that accomplish really great things, to such an extent that thousands of years later, we're still reading about it, okay? And it's still extremely prominent and relevant even in our time, okay? So those are three top things that I want you to take away from the Bible. Now, the second book that I would recommend to really help you get a deep understanding of how to run a business is a book called Managing Oneself. Now, Managing Oneself comes from an author named Peter Drucker. Okay, as you can see, it's a really, really tiny book, so you don't have to feel overwhelmed. Oh, damn, Uzziah, I got to read a 1,000-page book. It's like you're taking me back to college. You know, somebody shoot me and kill me now. No, this is a very small book that you can just get off of Amazon.com. All of these books you can get off of Amazon.com. In fact, I'll put all of these books in the description below so that way you can just hurry up and access it. So, in Managing Oneself, this comes from one of the most proficient professors, one of the best managers in learning that actually taught at Harvard Business School during the time that he was alive. This guy's name is Peter Drucker. He is a trusted, credible source throughout the business world. You speak to a lot of top business experts about Peter Drucker, they're going to know exactly who you're talking about, and a lot of companies live and die off of his teaching principles. He's actually one of the pioneers and forefathers of the modern business world. And managing oneself is so important because you need to know how to manage yourself to run an effective business. Now, why is that important? Because you might be looking at yourself and you might be saying, I know how to manage myself. Why would I need to read a book about it? Well, if you're already feeling like you know how to manage yourself, chances are 99% of you have been duped. And the reason why I say that is because if you think about the timeline of our lives from the moment that we were born up until today, we have constantly found ourselves being managed by other people. We've constantly lived in a world where we've been managed by an external environment, right? So you were born, you popped out of your mother's womb, and then you became managed by your parents, right? They give you things to do. They taught you. They gave you many different instructions and life principles. And you operated yourself up to a point based upon their management. And then you went to school. And in you going to school from pre-K to kindergarten, first grade, all the way up to high school or college, then what happened? Then you became managed to operate on a school curriculum, right? A school schedule managed by professors. They're literally spoon feeding a curriculum to you on what to study and what not to study, right? So you've always kind of gone down this path, whether you've known it or not, of being managed by external forces. Even when you go, to a job, when you're working at a 9-to-5 day job, typically the assignments are already being given to you from a boss, right? You're already being told what time to show up to work. You're already being told, what you got to do to be able to do a good job. You're already being told when to do this, how to do it, etc. But all of those things subsides when you become a business owner. When you are a business owner, there is no boss handing assignments to you. You have to be industrious enough to take the initiative and understand, well, what are the things that I should be doing to move my business forward? Nobody's going to tell it to me. I'm not going to have a boss. And when you first start off, you're not going to have clients and customers that's going to help influence the direction that your company should go. As your company is growing, you're the one that's going to constantly have to pour yourself into the company, and you're going to have to be really organized. You're going to have to be really aware of what your strengths are to be able to build a business model around those strengths. And for many of us, we have never had the opportunity in our lives to be able to fully manage ourselves. We've always moved based upon the opinions of others, the standards of others, the schedule and the expectations of others. And when you are a business owner, all of that changes. So check out Managing Oneself. It is by far one of the most impactful books that I've ever read. And you really cannot be an effective business owner if you don't understand the depths of yourself at a personal and professional level. See, what you got to do before you create a business that delivers value to other people is you've got to understand how you work effectively, what environment you work effectively in, what your top strengths are, in what rung of leadership you are most effective. Some people are just natural born leaders. Some people have the heart of an entrepreneur. Some people belong in entrepreneurial startups, but maybe not as the number one person, but they are still extremely effective at whatever it is that they do. One of the things that I always say, you don't always have to be the number one person in order to be very effective within an organization. So check that book out. It will save years off your life in failures and lessons learned just by you going through the nuances of the things that book tells you to do. Okay? Third book. The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. Okay? Again, all of these books are extremely foundational. The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. Now, give me a second to write that down for you. All right? The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People by Stephen Covey. Okay? The late Stephen Covey. Now, when you're reading the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, here's one of the things that you're going to realize. Effective people, they do things a lot differently than average people, okay? Without any judgment or without any negative connotations being put towards different categories of people, one of the realities that we have to come to grips with is that we have been trained in this society to be average. We've been trained to have average thoughts. We've been trained to have an average work ethic. We've been trained to have an average outlook on our finances, our time management, right? Our spiritual life, all these different things, our relationships, etc. The list goes on forever. And when you read the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, you're going to understand that what makes most people highly effective at what they do. See, being effective is what leads to success. You don't want to just be any kind of worker. You want to be an effective worker. You don't want to just be any kind of leader. You want to be an effective leader. So likewise, you don't want to have just any kind of business. You want to have an effective business that matters. You want to have an effective business that counts. You want to have an effective business to where not only do you reap the benefits and the fruits of your labors in this company, guess what? You can pass this business down to your family for generations on end. This business will run even when you're gone, right? And so you've got to know how to be effective. And that's what this book is all about. You know, some of the things that is talked about in this book is, for one, how to be proactive. Okay, many of these things we weren't really taught in school. How to be proactive, right? What's the difference between a proactive person versus a reactive person, right? The second habit of which, how to begin with the end in mind. There's so many people that never accomplish the success that they want in life simply because of the fact that they don't understand that principle. Understanding the concept of reverse engineering and how that will change the exact setup and dynamic of how your life is moving. So I'll give you a prime example. Let's say right now that you want to be successful. And without thinking about it, you just say, well, I want to be successful, so I'm going to get up every single day and I'm just going to work hard because I know that hard work matters. So you wake up every single day and you work hard, you bust your butt, you're getting up, you're commuting, you're making things happen, you're getting dressed, you're answering phone calls, you're attending meetings, you're running errands, you're doing this, you're doing that. You feel like you're doing everything that you need to do in order to achieve high-level success. But if you haven't actually thought through, okay, well, at the end of all of this, where is it going to get me? You're not beginning with the end in mind. See, most people, every single day, their life is a narrative of hard work that's getting them to the wrong place. They're so busy just moving in motion like a rat in a wheel, just working for work's sake, that they haven't actually taken the time to actually assess and examine, okay, well, before I actually get to work, where do I ultimately want my life to go? What do I actually want my life to look like ideally at the end of the day? And because of the fact that they never put these thoughts together on the front end, society forces them into a life where you're basically just working to make somebody else rich. You're working to just get check to check, and you can't get yourself out of it because you're like, well, damn, how am I going to pay the bills? How am I going to cover the mortgage? How am I going to take care of stuff for my kids? You're going to find yourself locked, operating off of somebody else's playbook, all because of the fact that you went through life without envisioning your end game first. See, it's no point of running the race if you don't know where the finish line is and what the finish line looks like. And that's what it talks about in the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. Okay, there's other principles in there as well about how to establish win-win relationships from yourself and others. Again, these are all of the principles that are needed to be very effective in a business, because if your business is not effective, then that means nobody is going to actually pay you for your products and services. Okay, so simple as that. Moving on to the next book. This is the 4th one. Okay, How to Win Friends and Influence People. Okay, this is so important. This is mission critical. Stop allowing the ego in your brain right now to say, well, I don't need to read that book. I'm not a loser. I know how to be able to make a friend. I know how to be able to talk to a person. Okay, yes, maybe you do at the level that you're playing on right now, or the level that you've played on all the way throughout your life. But is your level of influence and communication and building relationships sufficient to helping you build a multi-million-dollar company? Is it sufficient to help you actually get a 6-figure company? Is your current level of influence and relationship good enough to get you a 5-figure company? Is your level of influence and networking and collaborating good enough for you to step into your boss's office today and say, I quit this job? And you've got a business that's already successful and running to be able to help you make money, provide for yourself and your family, and you don't have to work for somebody else a day in your life. If the answer to those questions is no, you need to read this book today, How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. Okay, so without going into too much detail, Dale Carnegie was a very rich man in his time. And in understanding what are the most important components that goes into a business, the number one most critical success factor that he understood kept businesses thriving was the ability to be able to manage people. Okay, whether those were people that were working in your organization, whether those were people that you wanted to turn into customers. You have to have very, very solid people skills. Because if you don't have solid people skills, you're not going to get a lot of customers, okay? The number 4 book that I have on this list is How to Win Friends and Influence People. And I'm going to take a second to write that down, okay? How to Win Friends and Influence People. You know one of the things that's so important about this? Communication is arguably the number 1 skill that you need to learn in order to be successful in any arena of life. Because everything that you do in your life requires you at some level to be communicating with other people. What do I mean when I say that? So let's say, for example, that you have visions of having a successful relationship. Maybe you have a goal of getting married. Well, if you don't know how to be able to effectively communicate or even sufficiently communicate with your desired partner, you're never going to get that person to be a partner to you in a relationship, right? I mean, that's pretty common sense. If you don't know how to be able to, influence and persuade and get a person to be able to do what you want them to do, then you're not going to know how to have a successful relationship. You're not going to know how to have a successful business. You're not going to be able to lead kids well. You're not going to be able to, get the house that you want to get the job that you want to get, landing the interview. You're not going to be able to get the things that you need to get out of life if you don't know how to communicate with others. Okay? So for all of you guys out there that's like super introverted and you're like so anti-people, now is the time where I'm going to tell you to cut the crap. Because guess what? In my heart of hearts, I'm very introverted as well. But I had to step outside of that shell and come to the realization that for every great thing that I want out of my life, it requires me to work with somebody else to get it. Because I don't have it right now in my own possession. Okay? If you start from the bottom, like I did, the only way that you're going to be able to get to the top is if you bring others along that ride with you. All right? So you got to know how to be able to win friends and influence people. And something that I would add to this, right? He doesn't explicitly say it right in the title of the book. And I think this is important for a lot of you guys that feel like you're already on a certain level of communication and influence. It's not about how to win friends and influence people. It's about how to win friends and influence the right people. See, you probably got folks in your life right now that are your friends. But some of these friends have not helped you get to the next level of success. In fact, I would argue that you probably got people in your life right now. They might be your family members, they might be your friends, they might be your coworkers. They're actually tearing you down rather than building you up. And that's the environment that you've created for yourself. That's the existence that you've allowed yourself to have. And so it's not just about winning any friend, not just about influencing any person. It's about winning the right person. It's about influencing the right person. If you want to be an actor, if you want to be, let's say a top musician, well, wouldn't the gift of knowing how to win someone and influence a person really matter if you were stepping in front of a person that could hire you on the cast of a large movie role? Wouldn't your ability to win and make connections and network and influence people, wouldn't those skills really matter? If here it is, you're a great musician, but you're an unsigned hype. And you're trying to find the right people that can help you get the attention that you deserve. The only way that you're going to do that is by knowing how to influence the right people, okay? And that's what it talks about in detail in this book. I think at some level, all of us have a certain level of like natural, maybe charisma, natural speaking capabilities. But if you don't study the best, you're never going to be the best. And Dale Carnegie has put together a list of some of the best communication methods known to man in order to get the things that you want out of life. All right? So that's number 4 right there. The 5th one out of the 5 great books that you got to read that every entrepreneur should have in their library is the EMyth Revisited. Okay? A lot of y'all ain't up on this book. But you need to be up on this book if you want to be successful. Some of y'all have heard about some of these other books and you're like, yeah, Uzziah, I know that, blah, blah, blah. But you still ain't read them. So knowing about it, it means nothing if you're not reading it. The 5th book that you need to get down is the EMyth Revisited. Now, why is the EMyth Revisited important? The EMyth Revisited is important because it lets you know right off the rip that small businesses actually are designed to fail. And so that's the reason why 80% of all small businesses fail within the first 5 years of inception. Small businesses in America are not really meant to work because in order for your small business to work, there's a few really key things that has to happen. In other words, for one, you have to have a certain level of diligence, consistency, focus in order to bring your vision to light. You see, you could have an idea about something and you could have a skill that you are good at doing, but maybe you've only done it as a worker in a company and operating that skill rather than being an owner in that company operating under a certain skill. See, if you don't understand the difference between those two mindsets, you're already doomed for failure. And that's the reason why the EMyth Revisited is so important, is because it's going to show you the only way that 20% of small businesses actually survive. There's something that the 20% knows differently than the other 80% of all business owners. And if you don't open your mind to reading and finding it out, then guess what? You're putting yourself in that 80% by default, okay? You're going to understand in that book how to properly understand what a small business is all about, what your proper role should be, and the things that you need to get set up. So that way, not only can you have a successful business, but you can bring other people into that successful business as well. You know, one of the primary things, without giving it all away, that the book talks about is you've got to know the difference between working in your business versus working on your business. See, you're probably already good when it comes to knowing how to work in your business, right? You already know how to be able to, get the day started, work on, producing whatever it is that you have to produce, and you're competent at that. But when it comes to some of the strategic things that are necessary to move your vision forward at a business level, outside of just, whatever it is that you're delivering to a customer, you've got to understand, well, how do I work on my business? And if you spend all day just working in the business rather than working on the business, then you're going to find yourself failing in your company in a short amount of time, because you got to be able to know how to do both, and you got to know when to do one over the other. So I would highly recommend you check out the EMyth Revisited. That's by Michael Gerber. All right. So those are the 5 books. But last but not least, I have got a bonus book that I want to share with you guys. And just real quick, I want to give a quick shout out to Zamira, who actually left me a comment on my YouTube channel, and she asked me if I had any content out about the top books that entrepreneurs should read to start and grow their businesses. So thanks, Zamira, for giving me an idea on spawning a new video. For those of you guys that want me to go into certain topics for future videos, feel free to leave me a comment below on what those videos will be about. And the same way that I shouted out Zamira for giving me the idea, I'll give you your credit as well. All right. So the 6th book. Okay, now remember, you got to be a learning machine. This is just the start. And trust me, guys, trust me. I know it sounds like a lot of work. I know it sounds kind of dreadful if you're not just a bookworm, you're not just a nerd at heart. Let me tell you guys an honest confession. I did not read my first book in life on my own until I was 16 years old. Okay, I was never a reader growing up. I thought it was boring. I thought it was lame. My friends that I grew up with in Los Angeles definitely wasn't reading books. We were doing everything but reading books. And it wasn't until this movie came out called Tupac Resurrection that I was actually motivated to want to read a book, because the movie came out in book format. And, being an LA guy, obviously I was a big Tupac fan. And so that spawned the spark in me to actually want to start reading. And ever since then, I recognize that there's a big difference between reading boring books that you have no interest in, that comes to you in a school curriculum, versus reading books that you actually care about the information, and that's why you're going to seek it out. It makes a big difference. Reading is not the problem. School has trained people to believe that reading is boring, or reading doesn't give you any motivation, because you've already been programmed to read books in school that you never wanted to read. So what you got to do is you got to retrain yourself to say, you know what? Reading itself is not the problem. the boring ass books that I was forced to read is the problem. So start giving yourself books that you actually find a lot of interest in, okay? And one of the books that I took a lot of interest in is this bonus 6 book, is The 4-Hour Workweek by Tim Ferriss, okay? The 4-Hour Workweek is the bonus book that I would encourage all of you guys to get. And the reason why is really because of what the title itself says. So it says the 4-Hour Workweek, escape the 9 to 5, live anywhere, and join the new rich. Okay, so when you think about some of the promises or topics that are discussed in just the subtitle alone, a lot of those are things that we want out of life, right? A lot of us don't want to be at a 9 to 5 job. A lot of us want to have our own business. A lot of us would want to be able to live anywhere while making money, right? I've done videos about that in the past, showing you guys, you know, it's not just about in 2018 still going to an office building, dealing with some boss that's just, you know, breathing under your neck about, did you do this? Did you do that? When I'm traveling all over the world, I'm making money at the same time because I've built that system for my business, right? And the 4-Hour Workweek kind of shows you how to do the exact same thing. But the main takeaway that I think is important for every entrepreneur that's reading the 4-Hour Workweek is that as you read the 4-Hour Workweek, is going to help you actually build a business that suits your lifestyle. See, the problem with a lot of business owners, and you don't even know it yet, is that you're building a business that's going to end up making you a slave to your business, right? Because of the fact that you hadn't really thought through the lifestyle component of your business, you find yourself constantly going, at times you don't even want to work, being places that you don't want to be, dealing with people that you don't want to deal with, and you're making money in the business and you've escaped the 9 to 5 rat race, but you're starting to find yourself more miserable than ever because you're having to work twice as hard to get the same income that you were getting at a 9 to 5 job. You know, you're working 80 hours a week now, but you don't like what you're doing. You don't like where you're going. You're always stressed out. And so the 4-Hour Workweek to me is so key because it shows you how to focus on actually doing things that builds your life rather than takes away from your life. You see, the reason why I quit my 9 to 5 job was not because of the fact that I didn't like the pay, is because I did not like the lifestyle that it created for me. I did not like having to deal with certain people. I did not like the hours that I was working. I did not like the idea that the only way that I could make money is if I sat behind a computer desk all day and I was never able to communicate with anyone in the outside world. What the 4-Hour Workweek is going to show you to do is how to build a business that actually enhances your quality of living rather than takes away from it. Because what's the point of making so much money if you're not even enjoying your life at the end of the day? Okay, when I'm working right now, this actually heightens my life for me to be able to work from home rather than take away from it. See, that actually gives me more freedom. Okay, so those are the 6 books that I believe that every entrepreneur should read. All of them are great reads. And my prayer is that this will just be the start of something great for you as you go on your own quest to become a learning machine. All right. So don't forget to check out the links to these books in the description. Leave me a comment on other topics that you want me to address. And guess what? If you found that this video had any value, I want you to be your brother's keeper and please share it with a friend. All right. I love you guys. I'm passionate about this. Let's work through this together. All right. So I'll see you guys on the next video. Take care.